Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff and welcome to another episode of Gideon Stuff Adventures. And I guess this is going to be our Christmas special. At any rate, this is a special video because we're climbing Sierra Blanca, the tallest mountain in New Mexico. Alrighty guys, I am so excited for this for so many reasons. Not only is the Sierra Blanca area incredibly beautiful, not only is the area incredibly interesting from a geologic point of view, but Sierra Blanca also holds a lot of cultural significance to southern New Mexico, and we're going to be talking about all of that in this video, so buckle up, it's going to be great. Alrighty, so the first interesting thing that we need to dissect is that claim I made at the beginning of the video, that Sierra Blanca is New Mexico's tallest mountain. Those of you who are familiar with New Mexico geography, or maybe high points of the United States, might be scratching your heads thinking, no, Gideon, pretty sure Wheeler Peak is the tallest mountain in New Mexico. Kind of. It depends how you're measuring. Wheeler Peak is certainly the highest mountain in New Mexico. It's the highest elevation at over 13,000 feet. But what is the correct way to measure a mountain? This is something that's kind of an interesting topic. It's something that I really love debating with people. There are three different ways that you can measure a mountain, really. The number one way, and the way that most everyone is familiar with, is elevation. How high is the top of your mountain above sea level? That's a measurement that gives us the fact that Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world because it's 29,029 feet above sea level. But what if we were to measure from the base of the mountain to the top of the mountain, right? Just measure the mountain itself. Well, if we do that, then Mount Denali in Alaska is a taller mountain than Mount Everest. Mount Everest might have a higher elevation, but Mount Denali is over 18,000 feet tall bottom to top, and Everest is not that much. Even crazier, if we want to stick with this measuring convention, if we go out to the Hawaiian Islands and we measure Mount Kea from bottom to top, well, the bottom of that mountain is on the seafloor, and the top is forming an island, and that makes it technically the tallest mountain on Earth. How do you want to measure? Well, let me tell you the reason that I say Sierra Blanca is New Mexico's tallest mountain. In terms of elevation, Sierra Blanca is 11,981 feet tall, making it New Mexico's 40th highest mountain. 40th highest mountain, and I'm calling it New Mexico's tallest mountain. Where's the disconnect? Well, it comes down to our third way of measuring a mountain, and that's prominence. And prominence is a measurement of how high that peak is compared to the next highest area around it. And in this case, Sierra Blanca is New Mexico's only ultra-prominent mountain. It has 5,533 feet of prominence, which is a handful of thousands of feet more prominent than Wheeler Peak. See, Wheeler Peak is part of the Rocky Mountains. The Sangre de Cristos are a sub-range of the Southern Rockies, and northern New Mexico is full of a lot of really tall mountains. But that's the problem. All the mountains are really tall. When you've got a bunch of mountains that are 12 to 13,000 plus feet, there's not a whole lot of difference between all the different peaks, right? They're all going kind of like this. Sierra Blanca Peak, also called White Mountain, is part of the larger Sierra Blanca mountain range. And this range is part of the Basin and Range Province. So these are a bunch of like smaller mountain ranges separated by large basins. And in this case, the Sierra Blancas stand over the Tularosa Basin. And it's really shocking. If you're driving through the Tularosa Basin on US 54, for example, it is stunning just how massive the mountains off to the east are. They're just ginormous. In fact, there's about 8,000 feet of difference between the Tularosa Basin and the top of Sierra Blanca. That's crazy. That's nuts. Now, that doesn't mean that Sierra Blanca itself has 8,000 feet of prominence, because there are other high points in the range, but it has over 5,500 feet of prominence over the next highest peak. That's a lot. And that's why Sierra Blanca has the honor of being New Mexico's one and only ultra-prominent peak. Ultra-prominent peaks are any mountain peaks that have prominence over 5,000 feet. Actually, technically, it's over 4,999 feet, but you get the idea. And so, in my opinion, that is why I consider Sierra Blanca to be New Mexico's tallest mountain, because it has the most prominence. It's not New Mexico's highest mountain, but it's New Mexico's tallest. Quick note about the actual elevation of Sierra Blanca. You can find conflicting and incorrect information about this out there. In fact, if you drive on US 70 from Mescalero to Ruidoso, you'll pass a little pull-out that has one of those little historic marker signs, and it's all about Sierra Blanca. And it claims that the mountain is 12,003 feet tall. In fact, even the maps and ski signs at Ski Apache list the height at 12,005 feet. This is wrong. But for a long time, a lot of people did think that this summit was pretty close to 12,000 feet, just a little bit over 12,000 feet. And it was heralded as the southernmost point of the United States above 12,000 feet. That's incorrect. Unfortunately, Sierra Blanca missed it by 19 feet. The correct elevation was discovered later, but you know, certain signs and things take a while to update, so you will see incorrect information out there. If we had gotten to this mountain sooner, before erosion had taken the top off, it probably would have been 12,000 feet, but you know, we're a little bit too late. All right, now we've got all that out of the way. Sierra Blanca actually has a fairly impressive resume as far as mountains go. Not only is it New Mexico's most prominent mountain, it's the only ultra-prominent mountain in New Mexico. It's also the highest southernmost point of the United States. Let me explain what that means. No other point, no other piece of American-owned territory south of Sierra Blanca is as high in elevation as Sierra Blanca. I hope that makes sense. I'm actually also going to read this little blurb from a article that I will leave linked below. This is from the New Mexico Natural History Museum. Sierra Blanca is said to be the easternmost mountain associated with the Basin and Range Province, and the southernmost mountain in the U.S. with relief that extends upward into the Arctic Alpine Life Zone. So that's kind of cool. That's also one of the things that makes this mountain so cool and unique and special to me. As some of you might know, I worked for a couple of years out at White Sands Missile Range doing geologic mapping. And I remember one spring, I'm out in the San Andres Mountains, and it's hot. It's swelteringly hot, suffocatingly hot. It's miserable. Those mountains are rugged and rough. There's very little vegetation. Slopes like this, me and my partner, we're climbing up these mountains. We're panting and huffing. It's 106 degrees, zero wind, sun's just beating down. But we stopped for lunch, and I turned and I look east across the Tularosa Basin, and there's Sierra Blanca, rising up above the clouds, covered in snow. And it created kind of a weird disconnect in my head, but I loved it, right? Here I was in the Chihuahuan Desert, sweating my butt off, fighting off sunburn in the sweltering heat, and then 50 miles or so to my east, there's this huge, snow-covered, glorious mountain just sitting there. It's really bizarre, and that whole area of southern New Mexico is really, really interesting to me. If you drive from like Alamogordo to Cloudcroft, for example, you drive out of the Chihuahuan Desert and into the Lincoln Highlands, and you switch from scrub and cacti to forests with aspen trees and fir trees. If you're going from like a Tularosa to Ruidoso on 70 and you're crossing through Mescalero and all that, watching the landscape change just like that is kind of shocking in the best way. It's a really, really cool experience, and it's one of the things that I love so much about New Mexico is how quickly our landscapes and environments change. We have such a diverse array of topography and geography, geology. We've got all kinds of these different life zones that are just butting up against each other. It's amazing. All right, so let's briefly go over the geology of the area before we move on to some cultural geography, which I think is going to be kind of the main focus of this video, or at least the biggest takeaway for you guys. We already talked a little bit about the geology of this area when I made my video about Nogal Peak. The Sierra Blanca Range is a complex volcanic system with a bunch of erupted and intrusive igneous rocks, some minor sedimentary units, lots of breccias, pyroclastic flows, lava flows, a wide variety of different types of lithologies. Sierra Blanca itself is the leftovers of a massive volcano. And when I say massive, I mean massive. This thing would have been just gargantuan. Pretty big, bluey volcano, right? The tectonic context for this area is crustal extension. We've talked about this so many times on the channel, but during the Cenozoic, the western United States was kind of trying to pull apart. In New Mexico, the most obvious result of this was the Rio Grande Rift, but the basin and range is kind of the textbook example used for crustal extension. Basically what you have is the crust is pulling apart like this. And as that's happening, it's becoming thinner. Consider, like I've got this little thing of ticky-tack right here. I should have grabbed a bigger piece, but we've got this little thing of ticky-tack. As I pull it apart, you can see it gets thinner, right? So as the crust is getting thinner, the mantle is welling up closer and closer to the surface. The mantle is very hot rock. As it gets closer to the surface, it's melting crustal rocks. This is creating a lot of magma, and this magma is moving through the system, and eventually it starts to erupt. You're also accompanying this with a lot of faulting, because obviously you can't just pull the crust indefinitely. I mean, with this ticky-tack, right, I can pull it as far as I want, and then eventually breaks. That doesn't really happen on Earth. Number one, because the mantle will well up and create new solid crust. But the other reason is because the crust will fault to fill in these voids that are being created by extension. And so basically the brittle crust breaks apart and you have these blocks that will drop down or get pushed up. And this forms Horst and Graben systems. And basically this is where you have down-dropped blocks on either side of uplifted blocks. And this creates the kind of, honestly, in my opinion, it looks like a bunch of little worms. The little worm topography of a large portion of the American Southwest. You can see it from, well, I guess the American West in general. You can see it from Idaho down through Arizona into Mexico. And what it is a bunch of small mountain ranges separated by these big basins. And that's where they get the term basin and range province. Woo! Now, some geologists, myself included, like to kind of consider the Rio Grande Rift as a related but kind of separate province from the basin and range. We're not going to really get into that right now. But essentially, the Sierra Blanca Range is the easternmost reach of the basin and range province, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. And actually, I want to read a sentence from the introduction of a really, really neat paper that I found. I will link this in the description below. This paper is entitled Stratigraphy of the Northwestern Sierra Blanca Volcanic Field by Kelly et al. What year was this? 2014. There was a massive mapping project at or in the Sierra Blancas from 2007 to 2014. A lot of great research came out of that. A lot of really, really interesting geology. But I'm going to read probably the first two sentences of this introduction. The Sierra Blanca volcanic field in south central New Mexico is located at the transition between the tectonically stable high plains and the tectonically active western United States. Yeah, I think that's a great way to sum this up. It's a transition. When you go east of Sierra Blanca, you are on the Great Plains. You're going across a Permian Basin, but then you're out heading towards the grassy, kind of rolling hills. Eventually go to the Llano Estacado out near Portales, Clovis area, stuff like that. And then west of Sierra Blanca, you're in the mountainous basin and range. You're in kind of classic, Western scenery from, all your favorite Western movies, right? Plateaus and craggy mountains and things like that. So it is a really, really interesting transition zone with a lot of really, really cool geology. I mean, the rock types out here include, but are not limited to, got a nice little list right here. Intermediate trachyite, basaltic, alkali calcic andesite, monzonite, rhyolite. There's phonolites out there. Phonolites are kind of interesting. They're a somewhat rare volcanic rock. But yeah, so you're made up of a bunch of erupted rocks as well as intruded rocks. In fact, the summit of Sierra Blanca itself is an intrusive stock. And so that means you can think of it basically as magma that cooled under the surface before it had the opportunity to be erupted to the surface as lava. Now, obviously, all of these different flows have been piling up for a couple millions of years, starting at probably about 35 million years ago, maybe 38, 40 million years ago, and ending about 26 million years ago. All these different rocks were erupted, and they were piling on top of each other. But the main force that gave Sierra Blanca the prominence that it's known for now is faulting in the area. And again, that's that extension. You're dropping these blocks down. So the Tularosa Basin is going to be one of these grabens, and the Sierra Blancas are going to be your horst that's uplifted above the rest. And then the kind of distinctive shape of the mountain, this very prominent triangle, it's not that shape because it's a stratovolcano. It's that shape because of erosion. That's the way that all these different rocks in the area have been broken down by the elements and moved somewhere else. So very, very cool area geologically speaking. But Sierra Blanca is also really, really important culturally to the area. If you go out to Ruidoso, Mescalero especially, this area, a lot of businesses are named Sierra Blanca, White Mountain, which is the original name of the peak is White Mountain, Sierra Blanca. Obviously, that's a Spanish equivalent of White Mountain. It's very important to a lot of people. It brings a lot of tourism to the area, which brings a lot of revenue. Ski Apache is one of the most well-known skiing resorts in New Mexico. And in fact, I've got a thing pulled up here, just a second. Yeah, Ski Apache is the southernmost major ski resort in North America. It's located mostly on land within the Lincoln National Forest, but it's operated by the Mescalero Apache tribe. And they own the Inn of the Mountain Gods, which kind of runs the ski resort. In addition to skiing, hiking, camping, fishing, there's a bunch of lakes out there. All kinds of outdoor recreation in this area, which is really, really important to tourism, of course, but it's also important to the way of life of New Mexicans living in this area, especially the native peoples. Let's go ahead and talk about the Apache. The summit of Sierra Blanca lies on the Mescalero Apache Reservation. This is a 463 square mile reservation for not just the Mescalero Apache, but two other sub-tribes, the Lipan and the Chiricahua Apache. And This reservation has the sad backstory that most reservations in the United States have. This was an area of land designated for the U.S. government to put the native peoples of the area so that they didn't have to bother with them being out and about, right? And in the case of the Lipan and the Chiricahua, they were relocated to the Mescalero Reservation in the early 1900s from their original homelands, which were in Texas and Mexico. So despite being made up of 3 separate sub-tribes within the Apache, the reservation today is called the Mescalero Apache Reservation because it's on the homeland of the Mescalero Apache. I want to read something real quick from the website of the Mescalero Apache tribe. This is under their Our Culture section, and it's just going to be a little recap of the history of the reservation. Obviously, just like all the sources that I use in these videos, this will be linked in the description down below if you want to read more, which I highly recommend you do. But I just want to read this on video real quick. The Mescalero Apache Reservation, long recognized by Spanish, Mexican, and American treaties, was formally established by executive order of President Ulysses S. Grant on May 29, 1873. Mescaleros on the reservation numbered about 400 when the reservation was established more than 100 years ago. Survivors of the Lipan Apaches, a tribe which suffered heavily in the Texas Wars, were brought from northern Chihuahua, Mexico in about 1903. In 1913, approximately 200 members of the Chiricahua band of Apaches came to the reservation. They've been held prisoner at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, since the capture of the famed Apache Geronimo in 1886. All became members of the Mescalero Apache tribe and was reorganized under the provisions of the 1934 Indian Reorganization Act. So there's a little bit of history. We're not going to go into all the history behind this in this video. It's obviously long and storied and tragic at times, but I think it's important to set the cultural context for this area because it is so important to the history of this mountain. Now, not only is Sierra Blanca located on the Mescalero Apache Reservation, it's also incredibly sacred to the Mescalero people, which is why we actually do not climb Sierra Blanca in this video. Spoiler alert, I know I held on to that information until pretty late in the video, but you need permission to get to the actual summit of Sierra Blanca, and it's very hard to get this permission. I tried for a very, very long time. So in this video, my hiking partner and I summit a nearby peak called Lookout Peak, which is just on the kind of shoulders of Sierra Blanca. And the reason why Sierra Blanca is so sacred to the Apache people is because it is actually the birthplace of their people, according to several Apache traditions and myths. It's where the Creator created their people. So it's essentially their Garden of Eden. And you can imagine how important and impactful that is. So definitely want to be very respectful of that. That's why I've been trying to, get this kind of permission. And even though I've got friends there in Mescalero who have told me, just climb it, we're going to wait till we get actual permission, just so that I'm not a dick, But I do want to share a little bit of the Apache mythos surrounding this mountain. Long before the white man came, long before living memory, the Creator made life at the summit of White Mountain. According to legend, it was also atop White Mountain, during a thundering and violent storm, that white-painted woman gave birth to 2 sons, Child of Water and Killer of Enemies. At this time, terrible monsters roamed the earth, killing and eating humans. These monsters wanted to kill and eat white-painted woman and her children, but they were afraid. Child of Water and Killer of Enemies had grown strong and brave. When they became men, they went forth and slew the giant monsters. Humanity was allowed to prosper, and white-painted woman taught them to live long and pleasant lives. Now, obviously, my little rendition or abridgment of this story does not do it justice at all in any way. And so next, I want to actually read a poem. This is translated from Apache, to English, and this is based off of a story told by Lawrence Mithlow, who's a prominent Apache storyteller. And I believe he's a Chiricahua Apache. I don't know for sure. At least this story is from the Chiricahua tradition. And I'm sure that it's much more beautiful and meaningful in its intended language. But I do like this English translation right here, so I'm going to read it for you guys. This is called The Child of Water. At the beginning, the Creator existed. Everyone knows about him. And White Painted Woman also existed. Afterwards, Child of the Water was born. Killer of Enemies also was born. So there were 4 existing at the very beginning of time. And Child of the Water was a child of White Painted Woman. And Killer of Enemies was one of the evil people. He who is called Giant also existed. He did not permit people to live. White Painted Woman's children were being born. While White Painted Woman's children were still small, he who is called Giant ate them. Then White Painted Woman went about weeping. How can people be created on the surface of the earth? She said. Then White Painted Woman prayed, and it rained. She lay face upward for the water, and her child was born of the water. Then, this little one will be called Child of the Water, said White Painted Woman. And White Painted Woman was happy over the birth of her child. What shall I do that this baby of mine is safely reared? She said. Every day, he who is called Giant customarily came to her. He was looking for a baby, and after making certain that none was there, he went away from her again. Then she dug a hole for the little one under the fire that lay there. There she customarily put him away. There she reared him. She only took him out when she washed him. Then, after washing and feeding him, she put him back in the hole, just as he who was called Giant customarily came to her. Soon, Child of the Water became able to walk around. Then, one day, she had taken him out of the hole. The little one walked happily about the fireside. There were his tracks. Just as she had put him back in the hole, the Giant came to her again. And the Giant spoke thus to White Painted Woman. What are these? Here are tracks of something good to eat, he said to her. Then White Painted Woman spoke thus to the Giant. These? I long so for a baby that I often make such tracks right here, she said. Then the Giant spoke thus to White Painted Woman. Well then, do it before my eyes. Only then will I believe you, he said to her. Then White Painted Woman, before his eyes, made the tracks of a baby for him. And the Giant now believed her. Just then he saw also those blankets of the baby that were smeared with excrement. What are these? Here is the excrement of something good to eat, he said to her. Then White Painted Woman spoke thus to the Giant. These? I long so for a baby that I often make baby's excrement, she said to him. Then the Giant spoke thus to her again. Well then, make it, he said to White Painted Woman. Then White Painted Woman picked up a baby blanket. She smeared wild honey on it. And it was just exactly so, and the Giant now believed her. If you want to read that poem for yourself or are interested in any other Apache myths, tales, or traditions, I will link some stuff in the description down below. Alrighty, now that we've set all kinds of context, I bet you guys want to see me climb this mountain, don't you? So let's go ahead and do that. Before we do that, I want to just kind of tell you guys a little bit about the process leading up to this. So we hiked primarily on a forest trail that starts close to the Ski Apache kind of main base. The night before, Janelle and I camped in the Tularosa Basin because it was pretty cold up there in the mountains in November, and it was a lot less cold down in Tularosa. So we spent the night in Tularosa. We got up early next morning and went and climbed the mountain. I was going to make a video about the gear that I used for that, my tent, my pack, this, that, and the other. I harvested some wood and stuff to make fires and everything, but I never got around to filming any of that, so I hope you guys just enjoy the actual mountaineering part of it. And I'm going to shut my mouth and let you guys see that. Alrighty guys, well, it's Sunday morning, getting ready to break camp here, camping in the Tularosa Basin, and as soon as I take this tent down, we're going to head up to the high country and climb Sierra Blanca. Beautiful night, a little bit nippy this morning, but a lot warmer down here than it would have been up in the snowy mountains. Yesterday we went and just kind of scouted out what we're going to be doing, finding the trailhead, getting everything kind of figured out logistically speaking. And now we're going to do the damn thing. I'm pretty excited. You can just see Sierra Blanca right there. Snowy, rising above the desert. There's the San Andres, white sands. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Alrighty, so here we are about to embark, 8 o'clock in the morning. Got Janelle with me, of course, my hiking buddy. There is the trailhead right there. There's Ski Apache. Beautiful, beautiful day. It's about 45 degrees right now, and we've got the sun going to be hitting us most of the way up. It's going to get cold towards the evening time, but I imagine we'll be off the slopes by then. So I'm really freaking excited. It's gorgeous out here, absolutely gorgeous. The drive up is amazing. It's a winding mountain road with gorgeous, gorgeous views, plenty of pullouts for you to park and take some pictures and videos and just enjoy the scenery. Really, really gorgeous. A little bit steepish. The snow, a little bit of a hindrance. It's a little bit warmer than we anticipated, but we're trekking along. There's the top up there. There we go. Crest Trail is what we're gonna head on, then Lookout. That should take us along the ski slopes. Doesn't look like anyone's taken this trail this season, or at least since this snowfall. What a shame. All right, let's do this. Let's get this little steep, slippery son of a gun done. Watch out for the wood. Good? Oh, whoops. I just fell down between a couple of logs. Well, here we are having our lunch break. Gorgeous up here, of course. And I just hit 1 million views on YouTube, so that's pretty cool. What a historic day. Yeah. And it is here that I have the misfortune to tell you that my phone died before we got to the actual summit of Lookout Peak, which sucks. And Janelle's phone not just died as in lost battery, which would happen to mine. Her phone actually like died. It got wet on the way up and just... So no footage from the actual summit, which bothers me quite a lot. But I was able to... I have my battery pack in my backpack, and so I was able to charge the phone up enough to get some footage on the way down. Which, by the way, on the way down, the one of the guy running the gondola there for Ski Apache. Funny story. We get up there to top of the world. Janelle and I come out of the trees, and we're breathing heavy, we're panting. There's people up there taking pictures and stuff. People see us come out of the trees and they just like start gathering their kids and like, okay guys, come over here. Like we were some kind of crazy people. And then when we were coming back, the guy at the gondola, all right, so looks at us, he's like, when did you guys get up here? It's like, I didn't see you guys come up on the gondola. We're like, yeah, no, we walked. From the bottom? Yeah. Hop on, I'm going to give you guys a ride down. So he gave us a ride down on the gondola, which was pretty awesome. So great people over there at Ski Apache, by the way. Super friendly and just really, really helpful and obviously very competent at what they do. So 5 stars from me, I guess. Well, guys, this is going to be about the end of this adventure. Woo, that's fun. So we got to the top of Lookout Mountain. No more hiking allowed anyway. Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Really?
Bro, it's literally just a fucking elevation.
Someone's phone stopped working at the top. Well, now we just gotta turn around and go get some pictures with the good phone.
I'm not turning around. I'm done.
So now we're riding the gondola down to the bottom because we're not gonna walk all the way back down. We climbed about 2,000 feet over the course of how long was it? 3.5 miles? Mm-hmm. 3.5 miles, 2,000 feet. Took us like 4 hours, 45 minutes, almost 5 hours, something like that. Honestly, I thought we did pretty dang good. That was pretty fucking solid. Yeah. So, we will be trying this again in the summertime, I think.
And we made it to fog and stuff here anyway in the season.
Yeah, they're towards the end. So there at the beginning on the crest trail and stuff, there was, footprints of people doing the trail. We lost those eventually, so we were just kind of free balling it.
Yeah, we just free balling, dugging it out.
Yeah. So yeah, we made it up higher on foot than anyone else has this season so far, so go us. Or at least this snow. Okay, I'm going to get my ugly mug out of the picture and start showing you guys these views.
Where we're going for.
There's Sierra Blanca right there. How much further do we have to go to get to the top of that? 500 feet?
500 feet.
500 feet of elevation, not 500 feet distance, but 500 feet elevation. That's all it was above us.
Climb the mountain and they take you down. We climbed the mountain.
We climbed the mountain. Go us. Beautiful out there. And just like that, we're back to the bottom, headed to the truck. Took us about 5 hours to fight our way through the snow up there, and we were back to the bottom in like 5 minutes. Maybe 10. Crazy. And there we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. This was a incredible hike. Stunningly beautiful. And there's so much history, so much interesting science about this area. I could make dozens and dozens of videos about this place. And hopefully one day we get to make a video getting to the actual summit itself. I would love that. It'd be incredible. So stay tuned. But I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys. Thank you again for watching. Big shout out to my channel members right here at the Cowboy level. If you want to become a channel member, you know the deal. There's buttons down below that you can click to join. As for everyone else, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe, and share the video. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.